how can you be totally focused? How can you eliminate distractions from your life so you can focus on what matters most to you? Over the last 2 decades, our attention span has decreased. It's gone from being something around 12 seconds to now maybe 7 seconds. This is a very short attention span, and it's just getting shorter and shorter with each passing year because there's so many distractions, there's so much noise, there's so much short format content that it makes it very hard for our brain to be focused. Yet focus is something that you can train, and there's several habits that you can put in place to help you to train back that focus. In this episode, I'm going to break down the core principles around focus and what you can put in place to help you to build back that habit for greater focus and attention. The very first place to begin is, first of all, you need to understand what it is you actually want to focus on, because it's all good and well to give you all the tips and tricks on how to have great focus, but what is it that you actually want to focus on? And if you don't ask yourself that question, you will end up being pulled in all directions because you haven't decided ahead of time what is important for you and what you actually want to focus on. In order to do this, just take a brief snapshot of your life, of your business, write down the key areas: health, relationships, finances, and ask yourself in each one of these, what matters most to you? What are some of your core goals, some of your core objectives? What is it you want to reach? And write these down, because if you don't have that clarity, it's very hard for you to understand what you want to focus on, what's important, what isn't important. Everything feels as important when you haven't decided ahead of time what your core priorities are. For instance, in my own life, I put health as my number one priority because I believe that if I'm not healthy mentally and physically, then not only am I not great in relationships with my family and my friends, I'm also not very good at my job and my business because I can't focus, and I don't feel great if my health is poor. That's why, for me personally, as a priority and as a core area of focus, there is health as a number one. So I don't sacrifice my sleep. I make sure I exercise every day. I make sure I eat healthily and that I have a social life, because as an extrovert, having a strong social life helps me to feel great. Health being my number one priority, it helps me to direct my action. So in your case, what are some of the core areas and what do the overarching goals look like in each one? This doesn't have to be a very complex system. It could be as easy as I said with health, strong mental, physical health, and what are some core goals or habits underneath that? Then it could be relationships, strong, loving relationships. What are some core goals, habits, behaviors for that? And then in your business, finance, career, looking at what are some of the key aspects, maybe as a leader, be a fantastic leader. What does that look like as a business owner? Maybe what you want to achieve. What are some of your core goals and projects? And once you just have a brief snapshot, this really sets the terrain for what focus will look like on a day-to-day basis. So once you have your goals, then we can look at how you train your focus. And this starts by having these core areas in place, these core goals, and then looking at what are some of the core actions that lead to these goals. For example, as I mentioned, with health, it could be exercising. With business, it could be having great customer service or writing fantastic proposals or delivering a fantastic content towards your social media accounts or towards your different platforms that supports your business. Whatever it is, how does it align with that goal? Once you have all these different actions mapped out, you need to prioritize them, because if we don't prioritize them, they're all equally important, then it's hard to know. So you just look roughly what is more important than something else. For example, customer service is extremely important, but if you don't have any customers, maybe client acquisition is more important. And then you need to look, are you at a stage where you have sufficient clients where then it's more important to focus on customer service and the delivery? Or is it at a stage where you don't have that many clients, still customer service and delivery important, but then a lot more focus and priority on client acquisition and lead generation and sales, for example. But once you have that clarity, then it's time to look at how can you actually improve your focus. You start your day by doing your most important task and you eliminate all distractions. In order to train your focus, it really comes down to 2 or 3 core principles. The first core principle is to have a very high level of energy. If you haven't slept well, if you're not eating healthily, if your body is pumped with cortisol because you're very stressed, this will directly impact your focus. It doesn't matter how many focus books you read. It doesn't matter how determined you are to be fully focused. If your energy is low, your attention span will be low. And therefore, if focus is a core priority for you, that really means that energy is a core priority for you because they directly impact one another. So you need to look at what helps you to feel energized every day. For most of us, sleep, nutrition, exercise, social life, meditation or rest. These things are what help us to have high levels of energy. I'm not going to dive into each one. I'm sure there's a lot of research out there on what exactly a healthy diet looks like. Mostly if you just eliminate all processed food and alcohol, that already makes a huge difference. And then exercise, different people, etc. So you really want to prioritize your energy levels in order to have great focus. Once your energy is top of the world and you're super clear on your goals, then what do you do in practice in order to focus? You single task. That's what focus is. So you retrain your brain to only do one thing, because most of us as a default nowadays, because of the phone pinging and the different tabs open on the computer and people talking to us, by default we're multitasking. You first need to notice that we're multitasking and then start to think, well, what are we actually doing? Okay, we're checking notifications here, we're doing this there. And then you eliminate everything else so that you only have one activity that you're doing. Firstly, this drastically reduces the stress that you experience. There's a lot of stress from multitasking. So if you only do one thing, this really helps to diminish the stress. And then you maybe will notice, if you're very used to multitasking, that after about a minute or two, you have the urge to check the phone, switch to LinkedIn, open up the email. When this happens, if your aim is to increase your focus, you just literally bring your brain back to your current task. And if you've noticed that it's too late, you've already opened your email and you're doing something else, you just go back and think, oh, right, I was doing that one thing. So it's just training your brain very similarly as we do in meditation with our thoughts to constantly go back to that main task. And it will feel sometimes a bit boring. You will feel some resistance. It won't always feel enjoyable, but what happens is when you push through that, on the other side, you get into flow. And that's when your focus expands. That's when you feel you merge with your task, and this feels amazing. Now, so many of us nowadays never experience flow because we don't stick long enough with that one activity. We're so used to that resistance and to multitasking, we feel like it's flow to just rush around the day multitasking, doing a lot of stuff. But that's really just being drained and pulled in all directions, and it's not really flow. It can feel like that because it can make the day go by quickly because we're under so much cortisol and dopamine and adrenaline that it can feel similar, but it really isn't the same as full focus and flow, which feels calmer and more enjoyable and really this wonderful merging experience. So we want to get from this place of single tasking, few minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, to then getting into flow. Now, some of you watching this or listening to this will say that you can't just focus on one thing because you are interrupted maybe by team members, maybe by different things you need to pay attention to. Then it's a matter of carving out some moments that are uninterruptible, really just blocking out these golden hours or this golden time, and knowing also your chronotype. So are you more a morning person, in which case being in the morning might be, really important for you, or more in the evening, just based on literally your body type, your chronotype. And once you're clear on this, making sure that some of these hours are carved out to be totally uninterrupted. One of the clients I worked with, we scheduled together that they would have only a few days a week with meetings and have 1 or 2 days a week totally blocked out, no meetings at all. So those were uninterrupted days where they could do their work and deep focus. Single tasking. So number 1, managing your energy levels and making that a high priority. Number 2, single tasking. And number 3, focusing on the signal and not the noise. This is a concept that I heard from Kevin O'Leary, who's on the Diary of a CEO podcast, and he referred to working with Steve Jobs and said that Steve always focused on the signal and not the noise. The signal are the 3 to 5 activities you've decided are a high priority. linked to those core goals that you had that we discussed at the beginning of the episode. So you have those core goals that are a priority, and then from there, your 3 to 5 actions that really make all the difference. They are the needle movers. They are the things that really help you to pivot your whole business around and actually make progress. From these are the signal. The noise is everything else. It's that unexpected email, call, text message, change, and you can write in a separate column on a piece of paper in your journal or on the computer or in Notion or anywhere, what are your 3 to 5 activities and what is the noise, everything as it comes in. And the way I often do this is I focus first and foremost on the signal, and then at the end of the day, or maybe just before lunch sometimes, batch a bit of the noise stuff or postpone it and turn it into a signal for a future time, depending on how time important it is. So it's being able to differentiate between those high priorities and those other things that keep interfering. This really helps to keep your mind clear, to keep it focused, to make decision making so much easier. Thus is really all you need to be very focused. That initial first step of being very clear what is actually important for you, which is a lot of inner work to begin with. We covered it in only a few minutes, but it's a lot of inner work to be very clear on your goals in the core areas of your life. And then from there, having high levels of energy, very high important in terms of focus, then single tasking, and for that, single tasking on the signal and not the noise. If you're putting all your focus and attention on what is actually relevant, on what really matters, this will help to move your business forward. This will help to pivot things around, and this will help you to stay focused. And this can also be applied in your personal life. When you look at maybe some of your hobbies or interests or sports or anything that you're doing in your personal life, what is the signal and what is the noise? What's that extra hobby, that extra activity that you don't really need to do, that's just sort of extra noise? It's diluting from the core areas and from what actually matters. Being able to spot this, remove it or postpone it, depending on if it's something you do want to do, will help you to stay laser focused on what actually matters in your life, what actually makes a difference to you, and what is the high priority, so that you can actually progress on this. My name is Katie Studder. I work as a conscious leadership, high performance coach, speaker, and podcaster. I hope this has been useful for you. Please leave a comment or share below and let me know, what are your thoughts on this? What actually helps you to be focused every single day? And what have you put in place that has helped you to change focus around? Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and see you in the next episode.